O King Parikshit, mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulative principles and restrictions take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. Please repeat. O King Parikshit.
O King Parikshit.
Mainly the topmost transcendentalists.
Mainly the topmost transcendentalists.
Who are above the regulative principles and restrictions.
Who are above regulative principles and restrictions.
Take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord.
Take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord.
Now, Maharaj, before we continue, first of all, Prabhus, do you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah, and you see the translation right now?
Yes.
Yes. All right, now I'm going to go to the next screen. Tell me how much of a delay it is. I'm going to click right now.
Actually, all I see is a blank screen. I don't see a thing.
Because you're a Maya
body.
Well,
you don't, you're a Maya body. Okay, for the rest of you. Do you see?
Okay. Now I see a picture. Yeah, I see a picture.
You see the swan?
Yes.
Okay, so I think there's about a 3-second delay. Maharaj, do you see the swan now?
No, I don't see anything. I see a picture of my browser, you know, with the Bible on it. 1 second here. I'll try and close that. Okay. No, all I got is a PowerPoint here. So somehow or other. But anyway, we're talking, and I get the PowerPoint in front of me here.
Okay. So you just direct me, and I'll try to follow along as well as I can.
Yeah. Go back to the translation slide.
Okay. Translation.
Slide number 4.
Okay.
And this is just a nice picture of Prabhupada. I don't know where it's from, but you see Prabhupada, that Vyasa sounds like something like out of this world. Like, you know, Prabhupada is, you know, coming from some other. That's not even, I don't know where it is. It's not Vaikuntha. It's not Goloka. It's like some unbelievable place. You know, nice picture. Okay, so let's go to the purport then. Next slide. Slide number.
Okay.
Okay. Are you on 5 now?
Yeah, with the swan.
Yep. So actually this is going to be very, very slow because I divided it up into little pieces like that. The topmost transcendentalist, Prabhupada says, is a liberated soul and is not within the purview of the regulative principles. Okay? So of course regulative principles many times, we think, oh, the 4 regulative principles, you know. But you see Prabhupada many times he says like Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. And here, I think it's really even applying not even to the regulative principles of sadhana bhakti, but it's talking about somebody who's above the principles of the Vedas, you know, Karma Kanda section, that kind of thing like that. And of course the swan is the example of somebody above these things. And it's a very beautiful picture of a swan, you know, landing like that. Okay, next slide. Prabhupada says, a neophyte who is intended to be promoted to the spiritual plane is guided by the spiritual master under regulative principles. A neophyte who is intended to be promoted to the spiritual plane is guided by the spiritual master under regulative principles. So now he's talking about, you know, maybe about a devotee, again too, you know, because this is a whole thing. Human life means different regulative principles. And so on the PowerPoint, of course, we have maybe a Muslim fellow, you know, praying to Mecca. And of course, Muhammad requires everybody has to go to Mecca one time in your life if you can. You have to do namaz, which I think means you bow down 6 times a day, say certain prayers. You have to fast during Ramadan. Then I think those are like super essentials. And beyond that, you're supposed to give charity in a certain way. And general principles, you're supposed to, you know, share food and protect other Muslims. You know. Then below we have a picture of, looks like the wedding couple getting ready to get married there, and some below somebody kneeling and praying. You know. And so this is all over the world, you know, different acharyas, even to the level of Confucius and Socrates. I don't think Socrates gave exactly the sadhana through Plato, you know, but some general principles are there, you know. And of course the idea is that if we follow these principles of karma, activity, do this, do that, do this, do that, then that allows us to keep things in perspective, and then we start to see the results of our activities. We're not just confused by the current moment, but we can see things in a basis like that. Okay, I do this, that happens, and this happens. Okay, so then we get promoted from karma or karma yoga to dhyana. To jnana, where now we start to have a logical understanding of life and what are the different relationships, what happens like that, and so on. Yeah. Okay, a neophyte who is intended to be promoted to the spiritual platform is guided by the spiritual master under regulative principles. Okay. Next one, slide number 6. He may be compared to a patient who is treated by various restrictions under medical jurisdiction. He may be compared to a patient who is treated by various restrictions under medical jurisdiction. Like that. Yeah. Okay, next slide. And this is number 8. Generally liberated souls also take pleasure in describing the transcendental activities. And it's a little confused with the grammar also, but I think what Prabhupada's saying is that liberated souls, normally they don't do anything. That's the whole point. You know? And that's the question by the sages. Why did Sukadeva Goswami, who was a liberated soul, engage in this big effort to hear the whole Bhagavatam and then to preach it? You know, what did he have to do? But no, even in this liberated condition, they also take pleasure. The liberated souls also take pleasure in describing the transcendental activities like that. So even though the Lord's activities are pleasing to the materialists, but also the spiritualists, they also find pleasure in them. So don't advance the slide, but just push the button there, and you should get a little thing popping down, which is, as mentioned above, Prabhupada says, since Narayan, Hari, the personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation, his form and attributes are not material. You know. And again, it's just like we begin to realize, you know, following some philosopher, following Buddha, who's basically a philosopher, that, you know, my relationship is not eternal. I'm spending half my time in my mind, half the time is in South America. We're going back and forth organizing the preaching programs. And very common, this is completely common in the newspaper. For example, Chosica, it's about, 40 minutes from Lima, and it's kind of a little bit of a resort town because it's up in the sunshine. But it's a town, on the river, heading up into the mountains. And it's a typical, Peruvian town in many ways. Some little bit of industry going on and this and stuff. And newspaper. So you'll see announced in the newspaper that the children of so-and-so are having a commemorative mass at the church on this day, and afterwards there'll be a reception, a little kind of like a banquet and so on. And everybody interested are invited to please come, participate. And what it'll say, the children of Juan and Maria Gomez, who in this lifetime were known as, like that. Very transcendental, In this lifetime they were known as. But now they're known as something else. Yeah. So we begin to realize that, my designation in this life is not eternal. My clothes are not eternal. I mean, I don't know if anybody still has any clothes when they were 3 years old or anything like that, And my car is not eternal. Yeah, how many automobiles have you had in your lifetime? You can maybe just stop for 1 second. I had a Chevy 2. I had an inline 6 Chevy panel body truck. And I think that was about it. Before that, using my parents' cars, and after that, anything else. That's about it. Yeah. Oh yeah. For a little while, I had a Rambler that Jambavan gave me to use. Other than that, all temple cars and stuff. But just our automobiles. How many automobiles have you had? And you start to think about it. 3, 4, 5. Okay. Yeah. And so then automobiles are not eternal. My name and designation in terms of my family is not eternal. My citizenship in a certain name is not eternal. But male and female, is that an eternal principle? Or when we're liberated, there's no more male and female. Is this also Maya? Of course, Shankara would say it's Maya, you know. But we say no, it's not Maya. You know, it's actually eternal, and when you liberate it, it's still eternal principle. Ramananda, can you still hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I gotta find the mute button.
Yeah, because I've done these things. I've given these entire lectures. 2 times I've given the entire lecture. It was a great lecture. Yeah, maybe I should turn on my Skype or whatever. Okay, so that's the point here. Is that as mentioned above, Narayan, and leave your mic open, and are beyond. His form and attributes are not material. So we can begin to purify. We can begin to appreciate these things, and we've got to be in Shuddha Sattva, and maybe we can't appreciate it even though we're devotees if we're engaged in preaching so much, because we've got to come down to this material existence like that. Okay, slide number 9. Sorry, next slide. Yeah. So Prabhupada continues, the topmost transcendentalists or liberated souls realize him, Narayan, by advanced experience of transcendental knowledge, and therefore they take pleasure in the discussions of the transcendental qualities of the Lord's pastimes. Wow, so complicated. We're here with Pranadas, who's been like a Gurukul teacher, headmaster, everything else for about maybe 30 years now, 27 years. He was brahmachari. Maybe some of you might even know him. He was brahmachari, you know. Then he got married and he moved to Australia. They invited him to become headmaster of the Gurukula in Auckland, New Zealand. And it was okay, but only had 5 kids and a little disorganized. So he worked very seriously on it, and now when he left it, it has about, he's on the board of directors now, it has about, I think, 150 kids, 150 children in the Gurukula, the school there, like that. And he's developed a whole, thing of education, everything else. A very nice scholarly devotee. And the other side of the Goloka Foundation is Ram Giridhari, who's a very nice devotee from Bombay. And together, nice Vaishya who loves education, and nice teacher who loves education. But Prana is saying the same thing. Mother Urmila is here too. Is that when you go over these first 2 cantos again, you start to see there's so much still to unpack. Like here, Prabhupada says, the topmost transcendentalists or liberated souls realize him by advanced experience of transcendental knowledge. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I would understand, different things. Transcendental knowledge is a knowledge about things that are sat and chit, okay, yeah, and maybe ananda, because it could be different things. Vedanti tattva vedas tattvam yajganamabhayam. Okay, a Brahmin is also liberated. Okay, a Goswami is more liberated, and a pure devotee is the most liberated. So in different levels we're also going to realize transcendental knowledge. So in the beginning it may just be philosophy, it may just be logic, and by using your intelligence, being guided by Bhagavad Gita, you realize that it's just logical. There's just no way. It's just totally rational, logical to accept that there is a transcendence, and he's available through different sources, and we have information about how to follow the process. Okay, and so that these people, that by experience of transcendental knowledge, like that, you're experiencing this intelligence, this knowledge, and you realize Krishna, in that sense. But it's an intellectual experience. But this is buddhi yoga, But it's a very advanced thing. It will liberate you from the material world. And if you go on like this, of course, and you start getting to the level of becoming, a Goswami, Goswamini, and introspective, chit, sat-chit, and then that transcendental knowledge includes qualities, activities, directions. And finally, you start to have a, direct relationship with Krishna, and you experience him, through transcendental knowledge of him in your relationship. And therefore, they take pleasure in discussion of the transcendental qualities of the Lord's pastimes. Not the transcendental qualities of the Lord, but the transcendental qualities of the pastimes. Yeah. Of course, what are the pastimes we discuss first? His pastimes for creation of the material world. So in the first 4 cantos, where we've been going through now, it's again and again and again. There's Sarga, creation by Mahavishnu, Visharga, creation by Brahma, and then the next one is creation by the Manus. So these are very, physical things. And why do we discuss these pastimes of creation, material creation, again and again? Because that's where we are. And if we discuss them, we see it's actually a fact. This is a much better way to understand nature than what we learned in elementary school and the intermediate school and high school and college. It works. Atoms and molecules, atom bombs, medical pills, and all this kind. It works. But Prabhupada says it's 5th class. So as you begin to understand Ayurveda, Gandharva Veda, Vastu Veda, basic principles, then you see, there's Krishna. And you can see the taste and water, different things, so it takes you through the Gyan level, to the Dhyan level like that, where you actually can see how Krishna is doing all this, his external energy, and through Mahavishnu. So this is my comprehension, that we discuss first off these pastimes, and as we can relish them, which of course, in the very beginning we can probably relish a little bit, but the main content of our diet, like a baby, the main content of our diet is milk. But then later on it changes to other things. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he gave us so much. Commentaries on Chaitanya Charitamrita, commentaries on Chaitanya Mangala. So many books he wrote, with his pen. And then Prabhupada, of course, gives us those. So it's just enough to discuss the pastimes in the Krishna book, pastimes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and of course the pastimes in terms of Mahavishnu, the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj, and how he shows us how political science works. And again, if you want to take over the world for Krishna by political means, then Maharaj Pariksha gives you the intelligence and explanation enough to do it, to become a great emperor, to become a great king. So maybe some of the kids who have been born in this movement, they grow up purified, and then they're coming to the point where maybe some of them are going to start doing that, making moves. Like there's already, there's one lady now, right, in Hawaii, right? She's swore in on Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, like that. Can you still hear me, Ramananda?
Yes, but I have to stay muted because I have a squeaky chair. It would be so distracting to be experiencing stuff. Anyway, yes, everything's okay.
Okay, here we go. There's text slide number 10. Now if you can see this, you see here we got the hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. In Bhagavad Gita 4.9, the personality of Godhead declares, 4.9 declares, that his appearance and activities are divyam. So what is that? Jamma karma chame devyam evam yo viditatataha. I can't remember the first part. See, when you're trying to remember something, we always think in straight lines, our German mentality. But your memory in reality doesn't work in that way. It works iconographic fashion. So even if you can only remember like the third line or something, if you say it, that will stimulate the whole thing. Chatur Varnyamayasya, no. Jamma karma chame devyam evam yo viditatataha. Chakva deham punaram janma naiti mameti swarjuna. Yeah. It's good. Whenever you see these, take the time and stop and try and refresh your memory. The personality, Bhagavad Gita 4.9, the personality of God declares that his appearance and activities, jnana, and activities, karma, are all divyam, or transcendental. The common man who is under the spell of material energy, Daivahi esha gunamayi mama maya dhrataye mamayeva me papajante, takes it for granted that the Lord is like one of us, and therefore he refuses to accept the transcendental nature of the Lord's form and name, etc. Like that. So on the right hand side, if you got the picture here, we got Brother Ass, who, if you can see close enough, he's got a sika in the back there, a little sika. And he likes to hear, apparently. Brother Ass got big ears there, but also he likes to smell as much too, you know. Then we got Sister Dog, Cousin Hog, and finally for the pied de resistance, we got Joe Camel, like that. Joe Camel's got a cigarette and playing pool, and you know, but he's cool. Yeah, he got even in hell there are hellish pleasures. Yeah, nice Krishna conscious commentary on Joe Camel would probably be a wonderful activity for the YouTube there. Yeah. So, and people make this point. These Christian guys, they make this point that, you know, the role model for Budweiser beer is Spuds McKenzie, who's a dog. The role model for Camel cigarettes is a camel. Camels, when they urinate, they don't move their tails out of the way, so they urinate all over their tail, you know, dripping down like that. I was informed like this. Yeah. Patently stupid camels, unbelievable, you know, like that. Okay, and these people, they all think that God is a person like this. We were picking up some flowers one time at this farm, you know, commercial farm growers, and they had on the wall, this little card was there. It said, if God didn't want you to eat the animals, then why did He make them out of meat? Like that. If God didn't want you to eat the animals, then why did He make them out of meat? You know. And I was thinking of writing on the thing, for the same reason He made your mother out of meat, like that. But He's stupid, yeah. And of course, you know, if you don't want to change, all that's going to happen is when they you know, you start informing them, they become angry at you, and they'll trample on your pearls, and they'll trample on you also, you know. So let Krishna preach to them, if you can't get across to them, by Lord Chaitanya's mercy. If you look at it again, like, who is Krishna? Again, you look at archaeology, anthropologists, historians, all these kind of people. They're going to come up with a conclusion, the materialists, that actually there were two Krishnas. One was a tribal Aborigine chieftain, and the other one was a guy in this place of Dwarka, which had some opulence like this and that, you know. And the stories got merged over time, and that's who there was, you know. And there's nothing, there's no transcendence, there's no even mystical kung fu powers and that kind of stuff. They kind of really try and disprove all of those. That, you know, whatever actually exists, because these people, they build up calluses by beating on bricks long enough, and so their power is actually, you know, calluses and building up muscles and, you know, something like that, you know. So some people believe all there is gross matter, and even now, you know, they refuse to accept that there's any kind of transcendence, even on the celestial level. You know, there's many different aspects of this, but you see that there's people, the way the Bhagavatam is describing people, I see it, there's, you know, a lot of people on this gross level, and all they can understand, and they think that Krishna's body is just like ours. Number 11. Yeah. The topmost transcendentalist is not interested in anything material. The topmost transcendentalist is not interested in anything material, and is taking interest in the matter of the Lord's activities is definite proof that the Lord is not like one of us in the material world. So this is an argument that Prabhupada uses many times, and it's a good argument. Yeah, it's a good argument. Yeah. So what is a topmost transcendentalist? You know, this is a stoned dude. You know, you look at him and he looks back at you, and he's not conscious of what he's wearing. You know, he's not conscious of his environment. He's not conscious if he's eaten for the last 3 days or not. You know, he's just absorbed in some kind of like other world. You know, his body is existing in this world just like, you know, the way plants exist by sunlight. It's whatever comes and goes, food comes and goes within his range. As an automatic mechanism, he's eating. There's an automatic mechanism, he just lies down and sleeps someplace. Yeah, he's transcendent. And he's a Brahman effulgence. So you look at a person like this, and the ordinary person, how do we say ordinary person? I don't know, here, somewhere somebody with a little bit of intelligence, they're gonna think the guy's psychotic. You know, ordinary person is gonna look at him and think this guy's psychotic. You know, like that, and he'll look like that. You know, Gaurakrishna's Vamsidas Babaji had a big afro, didn't bathe, didn't change his clothes, always mumbling to himself. You know, and an ordinary person would just think he was a madman, he was psychotic, schizophrenic. You know, and many studies on this, even cross-cultural studies about R.D. Lang, the politics of experience. In one culture you're a mystic, other culture you're a madman, like that. You know, so this is a real topmost transcendentalist. They're not interested in anything material, but someone like that can come down to the material platform. And so that's why Prabhupada, sometimes he would disappear. You know, sometimes when people, you know, even on recorded moments like that, you know, Prabhupada would go on that platform. You know, and you see, it doesn't matter to this kind of person at that point what's happening with his material situation or body. You know, but other times Prabhupada would be on the material platform, so he could communicate with us. You know, certain things are materially desirable to us, and some of those are useful for our spiritual progress: cleanliness, austerity, truthfulness, mercy. Okay, you know, these things, you know, if we have an attraction for them, or we can be induced to take them up, then somebody, you know, on our platform can relate these things to us. So the Paramahamsa, he comes down to Madhyamadikari level, you know, externally, and then acts in that platform, and to some degree it seems he becomes a little conditioned by it. You know, maybe he can get out of it right away if he has to, but usually we find in stories like Dhruva Maharaj and everything else that it takes a moment. You know, it takes some time, some austerity. Like Prabhupada, at the end he was so much involved in, you know, just hearing and chanting, like that, you know. So some time to get out of this Madhyamadikari consciousness naturally, without violence. You know. And so people like that, if they're interested in these things, that Radharani immediately is testimony that these things exist, and hearing and chanting about Krishna from proper sources is the best thing to do. This whole section, if we look at all the verses so far, you know, Maharaj Sukadeva Goswami is just very common. He's illuminating, glorifying the question. He's glorifying the person who's asking it. And then what happens is we can understand the question properly. Okay, now we can go ahead. And he's making and he's focusing on the beginning, on the question, not even, the fact of questioning, not really about the answer to start with, that this is the right question. And he's contrasting it with the opposite, to put it in perspective. People who are just absorbed in the opposite kinds of kata. So the whole thing is Shravanam Kirtanam. Then he says in this first section, he kind of answers it right away with this in a couple of verses, that the real thing is Narayana Smriti. You know, at the end of life, to remember Narayan, that's the perfection of life. That's your answer. To meditate, to contemplate, to be absorbed. So we have Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So right from the very beginning, that's his answer. And he goes ahead and kind of expands that. And in this chapter, what he'll say is that to do this, to get into the Smriti, you need to do some kind of preliminary yoga type stuff, fasting, sitting down, chanting mantra, which at that time was very useful, very practical. So he's kind of recommending like a kind of a mixture of a little bit of Ashtanga yoga and Bhakti yoga. And then, but what's the content? Once you do these preliminary rituals, what's the content? So it's not Krishna's pastimes in Goloka. What he's recommending is not even the pastimes exactly of Mahavishnu. He's recommending the concentration on the Virat Rup, you know, pantheism. So text number 20 and 21, I think, you know, especially talk about this, and Prabhupada in the purports uses the words. So it's not an unnatural thing to try and create a nice environment, to have a nice fresh air, to have a nice time of the day to do certain things, to sit properly, you know, to have good association, but also just the environment, and then to put yourself in a place where you can appreciate God in nature. And it doesn't mean that it has to be all good. Quite to the contrary. we should also be able to appreciate death. We should be able to appreciate, different bad qualities, like tigers, killing, deer, stuff like that, so on, and appreciate how this is Krishna also, And Krishna is so terrifying, so powerful, but that means he can also swoop down on our enemies. If somebody's making us afraid to surrender to him and become fully engaged, then don't worry. You see that Krishna can come right out of the sky like a hawk and pick up the little bunny rabbit, just like that. Yeah. So we this is the chapter, and it's pantheism, and it gives some perspective on the background. But pantheism means he's focusing, hearing and chanting about the Virat Rup. So beautiful poems about nature. They're not wrong, And maybe that's our level. We need to be reinforced, by a little bit of discussion of Krishna's physical nature. Move ahead here. Number 12. I did a little blow up of our swan with a nice lotus flower and a, what do you call this thing? Dragonfly. It's nice just to stop every now and again and look at something pretty. Next, number 13. In the Vedic literatures also, it is confirmed that the Supreme Lord is one. Okay? Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam. But that he is engaged in his transcendental pastimes in the company of his unalloyed devotees, and simultaneously he is present as the super soul and expansion of Baladev in the heart of all living entities. Wow, so much. This is real broad perspective. It sounds almost like Prabhupada is just, paraphrasing a collection of verses from Brahma Samhita, like that, And so I have a very nice picture I found as if where it's from of Balaram walking with his arm around Krishna's shoulder, and like cowherd boys, barefoot, dressed in natural garlands and peacock feathers, and being followed by a little herd of peacocks like that, so on, And the story looks like Krishna's just a little sad about something, and Balaram's trying to comfort him, and maybe they look like they don't look like Kishore. They look more like Poganda, maybe like 6 years old, 7 years old. So maybe even still, Radharani's giving Krishna a hard time here, and Balaram trying to comfort him, and maybe Krishna does something stupid himself, in terms of we're playing with Radha, or something. Okay, the Lord is engaged in his pastimes in the company of his unalloyed devotees, and simultaneously he is present as the super soul, an expansion of Baladev in the heart of all living entities. Next slide. Yeah. So here we have a meditator and Baladev appearing in his heart. Next slide. Therefore, this is slide number 15, and you see this many times, in Prabhupada's purports. Later on, at least, I think for sure, Prabhupada didn't put the paragraph breaks in. And so sometimes there's a paragraph break right in the middle of an idea. There's no reason why it's there. Or another time there won't be a paragraph break, and Prabhupada starts a whole new idea, So if we're going to try and have Jnana Mishra Bhakti Yoga, if we're going to try and use our Jnana potency to catch Krishna, so we can really stimulate our bhakti, our bhakti yoga, then it's important to read Prabhupada's purports, analytically, and see what the content is. So right here, then, Prabhupada's saying, therefore, and we have a slide with fireworks and everything else. Therefore, next slide, 16. The highest perfection of transcendental realization is to take pleasure in hearing and describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and not in merging into his impersonal Brahman existence, for which the impersonalist monist aspires. Yeah. So this verse is about the topmost transcendentalists. Real transcendental pleasure is realized in the glorification of the transcendental Lord, and not in the feeling of being situated in His impersonal feature. So maybe we're like, if we talk, I'm convinced of this, we say that. But then we go to some Yogaville in Pennsylvania, and everybody there is friendly, and they're smiling, and have a big, there are kids there whose parents were yogis and yoginis, with Swami Satchidananda, and on the walls there's gigantic pictures of all the gurus, Rama Maharshi and Sai Baba, and all of them are up there. It's interesting, they're all up there, but I think maybe they added Prabhupada, like that, And so you see these people, and then how convinced are you? You're convinced enough not to stay in Yogaville and eat vegetarian food and associate with Swami Ramadevi or different people like that, But are you convinced enough to really convert them, or really want to convert them, or really just be sure that you're wrong? I'm sure even though you're a vegetarian, your parents are vegetarians, you have a blissful life, you're happy. Well, I'm trying to tell you you're wrong. You should give it up. Like that. So are we really, convinced about the bhava in spiritual existence? Well, we'll call it the higher bhavas, going beyond Shanta Ras, these kind of things like that. So we need to hear it again and again, and have it touch our heart in different perspectives, and then when we tell people something, that it has potency, because they can see that you're talking from your realized position. And then, many of these people, that's the whole point. Then many of these people, they read the Bhagavatam and they give up this impersonal conception, and they start to realize the Bhagavatam very quickly. Maybe I have a zero, I have 2 zeros, this quality, that quality. Maybe somebody else has 10, 20 zeros. Well, there is a difference, because when I put a 1 in front of my zeros, when I become a devotee, join ISKCON, I got $100. And when you join ISKCON, you've got $10,000. Okay. So there is an advantage to all this previous work. Sukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Pariksit, the 4 Kumaras, they immediately went right to the topmost position, like that. So we shouldn't, denigrate or tell people if they can't become devotees to give this stuff up. It's all useless, because they are accumulating credits many times. Okay, number 17. Last slide. But there are also others who are not the topmost transcendentalists, but are in a lower status, who do not take pleasure in describing the transcendental activities of the Lord. Rather, they discuss such activities of the Lord formally, with the aim of merging into His existence, like that. So it's a kind of a weird consciousness. I can't really, really get into this and understand who this is and why they do this, but there are people, trying to think like Baba Ramdas and stuff like that, who do discuss Krishna Katha, or even what's his name, even this one famous bhajan singer, what's his name, Ramdas or something like that. He's singing Krishna Katha, but also he'll sing Shiva Nam, he'll also sing Jesus Nam and everything else, And he appears to be a blissful person to some degree, and this and that. Although when he talks about the philosophy, what I've heard him talk about is pretty much sense gratificatory things, higher sense gratificatory things, but it's not anything about transcendence really, So there are people like that who do it as a formality, Now we're going beyond doing it for sense gratification. We're doing kirtan because it's blissful and I enjoy it. I enjoy celestial physical gratification. And this is people who discuss it to come to the point of the Brahman realization. And on the PowerPoint, we have a picture of a drop of water, falling into the ocean. Because, of course, that's their idea, that now we're all separate drops, but when we hit the ocean, we become one with the ocean, like that. The last slide there. And here we have an email, web address, and it's for our webpage, www.jayarama.us. And if you go there, there's just like 5 choices, and one is the archives. So you go to the archives, and then there's a you can go directly into the archives themselves, or also there's kind of a discussion of some of the stuff that's there, because a lot of the stuff is not cataloged and it's just there, Vaisheshika said one time he discovered it, and he said he spent like 2.5 hours just going through everything. And some of the stuff he said was junk, and he said some of the stuff was really interesting. I've even forgotten what we have there. Lectures from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, PowerPoint shows, And so it's kind of like discovering an old library from somebody who died like that, so on. So anyway, but part of the thing, if you look through it, you'll find tpp-bv.docx, and that's our study guide for all this stuff. Tavapache.bhakti by Baba. So that was the study guide, I think, all the way through the first 2 cantos. With all, for like right now we're on chapter 1. So if you look at that, it'll have a whole summary of the chapter and some important points and some personal realizations like that. And also it should have an essay question and so on. So if you want to use those, they're there, our study guides. And last slide, and it says, thank you, AGTSP. So, any questions, comments, or complaints about something other than the robot?
Marge, that was wonderful. Thank you very, very much. Okay, so I've unmuted everybody. So now you have the ability to unmute yourself if you'd like to. Ask a question, make a comment. I have some announcements I can wait to the end to make. Please go right ahead. Anybody?
My voice is filled the room. Yeah.
If no one's going to jump in, Dandavats Maharaj.
Hare Krishna from Houston.
Okay, Hare Krishna from Hawaii.
Okay, bye.
So, this regulative principles, you mentioned the liberated souls. It's in the verse that they're beyond these regulative principles, and there's so many. I mean, the 4 regular principles are regular principles, but there's so many instructions and rules given by spiritual masters to cure disciples from the material entanglement. But then there are higher stages where all kinds of sadhana and ritual performances of prayers, etc., become unnecessary because one's mind becomes naturally absorbed in the pastimes of the Lord. And there's a prayer that I couldn't find, and it's frustrating me. Maybe somebody on the call can locate it. But there's a Vaishnava famous quote where Vaishnava begs off offering prayers 3 times a day because now
Madhavendra Puri.
It is Madhavendra Puri.
Yeah, he says goodbye in my morning prayers. Goodbye, you rational empiricists, all you guys.
Yeah, so that's a good verse. And now that, my mind, I feel that the absolute truth is crawling in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. And my mind is naturally going there. And now I feel like that's sufficient for me. So now he's absorbed in Leela. And so it seems like it rhymes with... So
it can be applied at at different levels in terms of which what you're giving up. But that's the point when you come to Raganuga Bhakti, then actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, if you come to that level where you can do Raganuga Bhakti and you don't do it, it's because you're cheating. You don't want to go ahead. You want to stick with something where you haven't got to surrender so much. The level of Raganuga, when you can do Raganuga Bhakti, no, you should start doing it, and you should give up the give up the mechanical following of Vaidhi. But then with the Raganuga level, then spontaneously you're up for Mangalartik. Maybe sometime you won't make it because something else is happening, you know. But usually, you know, the topmost transcendentalists, yeah, they're the gopis. Every morning they would go and see, you know, Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda when Krishna was gone, you know, and so they would spontaneously do these things. Yeah. Madhavendra Puri.
Pundarik Vidyanidhi came to my mind is someone who's beyond all of that.
Oh, but yeah, and he externally he acted like a gross kind of guy, right? So that people wouldn't bother him, you know. So even Bhaktivinoda Thakur was in the Gorky Shore.
I don't know why the motive.
Yeah, because then
but he was definitely beyond it all.
Yeah, if people think they're materialists, like Bhakti, I was in Gorky Shore, Babaji also wanted to. Oh yeah, because then what happens is hypocritical, you know, or neophyte devotees who are not so purified. Oh, this guy's not, you know, he's not going to help me advance my religious reputation, like that, you know. Oh, I'm hanging out with so and so guru.
Of course, we have a line: don't try this at home. You know, don't imitate some liberated soul. But it's interesting that there is a stage where some things get left behind.
Yeah. Wow.
I like the subject of regulative principles, and I like that, Vidag, that you brought that up about sort of higher principles. Maharaj, you spoke about that in the beginning of the class, that you didn't think that the regular principles that were spoken of simply were the four. And to echo that, I had just recently read, where I know we've all read it and heard it before, but it's nice to always be reminded. Prabhupada said that the four regular principles, there's nothing particularly spiritual about them. They're simply meant to bring us to the platform of a human being. Because those that don't follow the four regular principles, that's simply animal life. So that just brings us to the platform where we can sort of start our spiritual life and embrace the higher principles that are obviously referred to in the verse.
Mm. And then we get people like Parasara Muni and was her name? Satyavati? And then the Parasara Muni apparently engaging in illicit sex. Yeah? But they're not, because he realizes that she's going to be the, you know, some other's line, Vishnu's going to appear and everything else. So he's doing it for a totally higher spiritual transcendental purpose. But usually those people naturally follow the four principles. It's just natural, you know. But on the other hand, then sometimes, yeah. But when you look at it from a broader perspective, no. Yeah, everything's, you know, proper there. You know, advanced spiritual knowledge. You know. It's a very wonderful, you know, chapter. You know.
Mm-hmm. Even the Damodar prayers, Satyavati Muni, he says that I don't care about all these benedictions. I don't care about going to Vaikuntha. I don't care about all this other stuff. I just want this meditation. If I can get this, I got everything. I know that.
Wow.
And advanced devotees, they, I remember a Vaishnava once brought up in a class, he asked rhetorically, what was Ambarish Maharaj thinking when Durvasa Muni plucked that lock of hair, maybe it was a dreadlock, out of his head and threw it onto the marble floor, and that fiery demon just bursts out of the floor, and you know it's coming towards Ambarish to just consume him in flames. And so Ambarish, he's standing there with folded palms. So what is he thinking? And you know, nobody had an answer for that. And then he answered his own question. He said he was thinking, if Krishna wants, this is it for me, you know, this is Krishna's decision, that this is how I'm going to die. There's nothing I can do. But if this is not Krishna's decision, there's nothing this demon can do.
Mare Krishna Rake Kur. Rake Krishna
But
Mare.
the idea being that this Vaishnava was absorbed this is his natural flow of consciousness. He's absorbed in Leela. He's absorbed in thinking about these things.
Wow. That's when we come to the stage of ruchi. We're having discussions here. Ruchi is where you can actually cultivate your taste. Somebody's cultivating his garden, a certain amount of carrots, a certain amount of broccoli, a certain number of trees, and this and that. So you cultivate the kind of garden you want because of certain motivations, necessity. So at the level of ruchi, you can actually cultivate your Ram Bhava, if that's what you want. Or if you want to cultivate something else, okay. And as you cultivate this taste, then of course you become more attached to it as you cultivate it. You can cultivate your attachment to it, cultivate yourself into a very strong attachment, like that. But that's the level. Well, what are you doing? Am I not worrying about my body if I'm eating or sleeping? All my thing now is just looking for people. I want to find somebody who wants to talk about this. God, where's somebody? This and that. You develop your whole association and community of people. Prabhupada says that one should understand Bhagavad Gita from a perspective of people with like mentality. And because people, there's a section where he's talking about somebody who's attached to Ram Katha should find a guru, who's in that same mode as he is, in hearing and chanting, like that. It's in the 7.5.23, Shravanam Kirtana Vishnu Smari. Yeah. So very, very, very nice verse. And Sukadeva Goswami is giving such perspective in all these things. And now he's going to go ahead and then stimulate Maharaj Parikshit with Virat Rup meditation, and then take him on into next chapter, into Paramatma appreciation. And finally, in the third chapter, at the very, very end of that, he introduces the ecstasy and bhava in the changed heart. So Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, Sat, Chit, Ananda, pantheism, mysticism, monotheism. And these three chapters.
Maharaj, this first quote, like-minded persons, it's eluded me. I've tried the database. I've tried every which way to find this thing. Do you know where that is?
I'm picking it up right now. Okay, I got my database thing here open. I'm going to Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm going to, this is going to be 7th canto? Yeah, Prahlad Maharaj. Maybe I'm wrong. That's why it's nice to look this up. And 7.5 is sure enough. Prahlad Maharaj said the son of Hiranyakasipu. And 7.5.23, because 2 and 3 is 5. Okay, that's the one. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. I got my little army of ideas. It's not very big. They saved me when the demons attack. Okay, now I'm going down. This is probably going to mess up the 7.5.23. Now then Prabhupada, as he goes into, I think he's quoting the Bhaktisiddhanta. Okay, Shravanam. Hearing the holy name is, although 9 processes sufficient in chronological order, hearing is the first one. Thus the hearing of the understood platform we realize further awakens this transcendental, therefore chronological process. Hearing is first. Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the holy name. Ramadeshu. One may chant the holy name of Lord Krishna, or one may chant the holy name of Ram and Nrsingadev. Okay, the transcendental holy name of the Lord may be heard and chanted according to the attraction of the devotee. One may chant the holy name of the Lord, Krishna, or one may chant the holy name of Ram and Nrsingadev, Ramadi Murtashi. The Lord has innumerable forms and names, and devotees may meditate upon a particular form and chant the holy name according to his attraction. The best course is to hear the holy name and form and so forth from a pure devotee of the same standard as oneself. In other words, one who is attached to Krishna should chant and hear from other pure devotees who are also attached to Lord Krishna. The same principle applies for devotees attracted by Lord Rama and the Nrsingadev. And so that is it. It's in the 7.5.23 in the subsection number 1 Shravanam, and there's a nice description like that. Is that okay?
Yeah, there's a more explicit reference that one should seek out like-minded devotees and discuss the philosophy. I thought it was in teachings of Lord Chaitanya, or
it could be
something
but
like
then,
that.
But then I think if you because I'm also thinking the same thing as the back of my mind, and I think it's more explicitly said like that in the third section under Smarnam, where it's talking about that we ask probably says, okay, I guess I got to go though. It says 7:46. I got 12:46. I got to pack.
Okay,
but I
no
think
problem.
under the third section where
It's
it talks about
a long
Smarnam.
purport.
Oh yes, it's like a whole book. It should be published by the BBT as a separate book. This little thing like that. It should be the Christians. The third one, Smarnam, I say probably says we have already noted that people that hearing is a product, it produces the Smarnam, and therefore we will note again that people who want a certain Smarnam should find a guru, so on. But we should go 12:45. I've got to kind of pack up here and get to the airport on time. We're going to go back to our base in Tennessee.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Before everybody goes, I have an important announcement, and that is on Sunday, the 3rd, is daylight saving times is going to go back. So simultaneously, we're going to switch our time. This is our final change. We're going to switch from 6:30 a.m. to 6 a.m. for our Bhagavatam classes. So 6 in the evening, 6 in the morning. It'll be like that from now on. So come back next week, and it's going to be at a different time. Instead of 6:30, 6 a.m. And also daylight savings times will have changed, at least for the U.S., other parts of the world too. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj, very much.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Jai Maharaj.
Jai, thank you very much.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Jai.